Hey everybody, this is Robert Burke. Welcome to episode number 34 of When to Play. And today we are going to be talking about another Kickstarter project that I had backed that I just got in the mail. It's true, I've got a Kickstarter problem. I do like to kickstart games that I find interesting. I've had a lot of luck with Kickstarter games, and this one we're going to be talking about is Dungeon Roll, which comes in this cool little treasure chest box that looks like a mimic. You can see the teeth there on the chest. I'm gonna eat you. So the mimic box was a Kickstarter exclusive that came for just Kickstarter backers. If you buy this game on the open market now, it's going to have a different box, but everything else is going to be basically the same. All right, so let's talk about components and artwork first. First of all, as I showed you, it comes in the cool little treasure box chest. It has a rule book, small rule book that obviously has to be small to fit in this size package. The rule book is okay. I think it's got everything you need to learn the game. There's errors in it though. For example, a big error in this is page 4. The game setup is the same as page 14 in the rule book. So I don't know how that happened, but you'll see there's the game setup on page 14. There's the game setup on page 4. It looks like on page 14 it was supposed to be some descriptions of some of the treasure tokens. So it's not that big of a deal because they have some good reference cards that show you what all the treasure tokens are. And then it shows you some special, the abilities of the different dice in the game on the other side. So you do have 4 of these reference cards in the game, which make it much easier, especially when you're first learning the game. But how a major error like that got in a rule book, I don't know. But hopefully the regular production run has been corrected. I don't know if all the produced copies have that error in it, or if it was just the Kickstarter box. Hey, maybe it'll be something that's worth a lot of money in the future. I have the first edition with the incorrect rule pages. Who knows? But it also has got a ton of these dice. It's got white dice for the dungeon, for your adventuring party. There's different symbols for different types of adventurers. There's a thief. There is a fighter. There is a champion, which is kind of like a wild card, which can defeat any kind of enemy. There's a cleric. There is a scroll, which basically lets you re-roll dice when you roll these. So you're going to roll 7 of these party adventure dice to start your turn. And then another player is going to roll these dungeon dice, which has a dragon, and if you get 3 of those, you're going to have to fight the dragon. And to defeat the dragon, you need 3 different types of adventurers. So a cleric, a fighter, and a thief would do it, or a champion, a thief, and a mage would do it. So when that happens, you need to make sure, if you're getting close to rolling 3 dragons, you need to make sure you have the adventure dice you need to defeat the dragon. Other than that, there are skeletons that can be, one skeleton can be defeated by any adventurer type, or a cleric can defeat any number of skeletons that have been rolled. And all of them have that same kind of ability. Like a goblin, any adventurer can kill 1 goblin, but a fighter can kill any number of goblins. And they're color-coded, right? So the goblins are green, the fighters are green, so you know that, hey, this die here will defeat any number of the same color on the black die. So that makes it kind of easy to understand how the game works. So you're going to roll your 7 dice, and then in level 1 of the dungeon, which you're going to mark with this 10-sided die here, there's 10 levels of the dungeon. So on level 1, somebody is going to roll just 1 dungeon die, and you have to beat that 1 die. Then when you go to level 2, they're going to roll 2 dice, and you have to beat both of those. And you don't get to re-roll your dice. You roll them once, and you see how far into the dungeon you can get. It goes all the way up to level 10. Obviously, if you beat that, you get 10 experience points. You get 1 experience point for every level of the dungeon you clear on a delve. And a delve is just 1 time into the dungeon. You see how deep you can go into the dungeon, and you're going to score 1 experience point for every level that you defeat. Now, you can go as many levels as you want, but if you fail, if I go into level 5, for example, and they roll the player rolls the dungeon dice, and I don't have enough adventurers left to defeat the monsters that were rolled, and I can't do it, then I don't get experience at all for that turn. So if that happens, you're pretty much out of the game, which is kind of a flaw, I think, with the game itself, but I'll talk about that more. Okay, I got off track, started going into the game. Let me go back to the components and artwork, because I wanted to cover that first. I like to cover that first in my reviews. The cards, you get a bunch of cards, you get the reference cards, and you get a bunch of character cards as well. Now the cards are pretty cheap quality, they're thin, they're big cards though, they're kind of jumbo size cards, which is good. And they have all your different characters. And on one side you have, like, this is the Viking, and when that character levels up, you can level up a character just once per game. He will go to the Undead Viking, and he's got a more powerful ability. Every character has ability that they can use every turn, and then an ability they can use just once per delve. So the card quality isn't the best. I already talked about the rule books, the rule book. It also has these other books here that will give you more details on all the cards, all the characters that come in the game, which is fantastic. That's a really nice addition. It also has these little tokens. And the treasure chest is used in the game too, which is cool. So you're going to have all these little treasures, like here's a potion, here's a dragon scale, that'll be worth victory points at the end of the game if you have them. Here is a thieves' tools, and if you have that, you can use it as if you rolled a thief. So there's all these different treasure types in the chest here. So you're going to get these if you open a treasure, and the dungeon dice has these little treasures, they're little pink treasures. You can open those, with your thieves. If you roll a bunch of them, you can use one thief to open them all, or one character can open one chest, and you're going to get a treasure randomly from the treasure chest every time you open a chest. So these are going to help you complete more levels of the dungeon, but every one you spend isn't worth points at the end. Now I have a problem. I think the quality of them is fine. They're small. I think they're thick enough. But one thing I don't like are the victory points. When you earn a victory point, you get these victory point tokens. And on one side, like this is 1 victory point, but on the other side of the coin, it says 5 victory points. So I understand that they needed to save money. That was a way to save money, right? Is print different values on each side of these victory point coins. But it drives me crazy. I mean, because, I like to play with bits, and a lot of players like to play with the stuff that they earn during a game while they're waiting for other people to take their turns. And in this game, for what it is, you can wait a while before it comes back around to you, which is another issue, I think, with the game. But this, I mean, I would rather have more coins with the same value on each side than this mimic box. I think it would have been money much better spent, because it just drives me crazy. I earn 1 point, I've got to put it down, I can't touch it. If it falls off the table, or if people forget what they had, or if things get flipped over, then who knows how many victory points people had. It was a bad decision, I think, to put different values on two sides of these victory point coins. They should have made more of them. They should have dropped some of this flashy stuff that's not important for the game at all, and improved the actual components in the game. So that was one issue I had with it. The dice are fantastic. I think the iconography is good. Some people like them, some people don't. I think they're fine. I think the way the colors match up is really well done. I think the 10-sided die especially is really nice, chunky die. The font on there that they use is very cool, and it's got the dragon symbol for the 10 side. I think that's really good as well. So all in all, I think the quality is pretty decent. Like, again, the cards are on the cheaper side, and they really skimped on the victory point cards. So that's the only things I would really say about the components that I disliked. The artwork is, some of it I like, but a lot of it is just not my style. You might love it. I think the artwork's very well done. It's just not it's kind of a cartoony kind of Dungeons and Dragons cartoon style, like when they used to have the cartoon show back in the early 80s. It's kind of a very cartoony look that I'm not really a big fan of, but you might really love it. But it's thematic, and it works with the game. And the theme does come through for a pretty random game. So let's talk a little bit more about the gameplay and what I think about that. All right, so the first thing you need to understand about Dungeon Roll is it is an inexpensive game. I paid $15 for this on Kickstarter. It's going to sell for, I think, $15. They raised so much money, I think it was $250,000, which enabled them, Tasty Minstrel, to print a lot of these. And so with economies of scale, when you're manufacturing a lot of games, the price per unit can come way down. So you're seeing pretty good. I mean, for the price, the components are great. I mean, there were a couple issues I had with the components, but you got to remember, you're only paying $15 for this game. So it's really kind of astounding the quality you get for $15 to play this game. Now, as far as the game, the fun in the game itself, I think the game is okay. I think it definitely fits a niche. It's a quick game. You play 3 rounds and it's over. Every player does a delve into the dungeon 3 times and then it's over. It is a very kind of solitaire, it's not an interactive experience. When I'm doing my dungeon delve, somebody gets to roll the dungeon dice, but that's it. And you are just playing against the dungeon, trying to get in as far as you can, and everybody else is kind of twiddling their thumbs. So while you can play with 4 people, you know, depending on how long it takes people, because you've got decisions to make, and people can go down 5, 6, you know, as many levels as they think they can make it. So everybody's waiting that time. So there is a lot of wait in between times. So if you have a problem with that, if you don't like games where you have to wait for an extended period of time for your turn to come around, then this is something you might not enjoy. Or you might just want to play it with 2 players, or even solo. You can play it as a solo game. I tried that a couple times. I'm not really into solo games, but it was kind of cool. It was something that I probably will never do again, because I don't like solo games though, so I can't really comment on the solo aspect of the game. But the solo part of the game feels kind of like the multiplayer version of the game, if that makes any sense to you. Now, whoever gets the most victory points is going to win in a multiplayer game, and in a solo game, it's got a little chart that says you scored 19 points, you're a loser, or you scored 20 to 23 points, you're a peasant, and it goes up, a champion or whatever. They've got different, I don't remember exactly what they are, but depending on how many points you score is where you fall on this chart, and that's how you play the solo game. But I guess the problem I have with this is you look like at another game like Zombie Dice, for example, that is probably, I think, just as inexpensive as this. Zombie Dice, to me, is a lot more fun, and it's a lot quicker, and it's just a better game. Even though it's more simple than Dungeon Roll, it's more fun because it really has that push your luck element. I can roll as much as I want, and you can really make up ground if you're behind in Zombie Dice, if the dice go your way. If you're way behind in points, you can keep rolling and hoping not to get those shotgun shells. And that can be exciting when you get on a roll, like when you're at a craps table and somebody starts rolling hot. In Zombie Dice, if you start rolling hot, you can really close the gap points-wise. You can't do that in Dungeon Roll. You really can't do it. The points you can earn each turn are limited. For one. Now, the one thing that helps with that, and thank God this is in the game, are the special abilities of each character. And every one of them is different. And it comes with a bunch of them, which is great. And that really makes the game worth it. Because every character is going to have different abilities to help them get through the dungeon. Or roll, they might get to re-roll dice. They might get to add an extra die and roll more than everybody else. They may get to flip, get rid of 2 dice, but turn all the dice in their party to be a champion. All kinds of different abilities that keep the game a little bit interesting. But as an experience, it kind of fell flat for me. You might really like it. Thematically, it works. I think the whole thematic fantasy thing works in the game. And it works as a dice game. But it doesn't have that, that you're standing up on the edge of your sheet or you scream out loud when you get that good roll and can overtake somebody or get a lot of points. In here, if you don't get 5 experience points, when you earn 5 experience points, you can upgrade your character and flip them over to their more powerful side. They have gained a level. So when you don't do that on your first turn and somebody else does, they're going to be ahead of you, right? They already have 1 more victory point than you for sure. And now in the second turn, they're going to get to use their more powerful ability, and you can't because you haven't leveled up. So it's going to be very hard to catch up with people because you're very limited into how many points you can score each round because everybody gets 7 dice, right? Some people might have abilities to re-roll and whatnot, and some of the abilities are better than others, I think. I haven't played every single character, so I don't want to go too much into that. But some of the characters I saw that I did use, there's definitely some that I say, that one is definitely better than this one. So that's maybe be another issue with the game. Now, I don't want you to think I'm saying this is a horrible game. I don't think that. I just think, for me, I think there's better push-your-luck dice games out there that I would rather play that are quicker and that where you don't have to wait. But I think the game is fine. And for $15, I think it's an excellent value. I played it with my son. My son loved it. He loved this game. It's simple. It's got a lot of stuff to it, but he can still grasp it and play it. So I think it's a really good game that you can play with your families. I think it really can fill that niche as a filler game during your gaming groups, especially if there's just 2 of you waiting for other players to arrive to play a bigger game. I think Dungeon Dice definitely fits that. It's a great filler to have. I think it's definitely worth having in your collection. But it didn't really blow me away. I didn't really get that sense that it was really a push your luck game at all. I would be hesitant to even call it a push your luck game because you really don't get that sense and that risk reward kind of on the edge of your seat. This roll is so important to me. You never get that kind of feeling in Dungeon Dice. But it's a good effort, and for $15, I think it's definitely worth it. If you're unsure, try it. I think there's a lot of copies of this floating around right now after the Kickstarters got their reward. So try it and see if it's something you might want to pick up. So as we usually do, let's look on Board Game Geek and read some of the comments from people who've rated this very low and some of the comments from people who've rated it very high. Currently, it's rated a 6.94 with 353 ratings. That's pretty good. It's almost a 7 for a light game like this on Board Game Geek. That's a good rating right out of the gate. But some of the people who rated it low, we've got Lord Arak said, I feel like this was all hype because of cost versus components, and I got caught up in it. That happened to me too. I resisted because I read the rules when it was on Kickstarter, and it didn't really grab me that much. But for $15, and as I watched the project, I just all right, I'm going to pledge and get it. And I kind of did that too, got caught up in it. It says, when you have a pile of components that you don't need to play the game, there is something wrong. It seems like the game itself wasn't a solid concept from the beginning to start, adding extra Kickstarter exclusive pieces that don't do anything. I would have loved to like this one, but I just can't and will not likely play it again, especially not with multiple players. I really don't understand all the high ratings for this game from the people who backed it on Kickstarter but hadn't played it. Shouldn't ratings come after play? So Lord has a very good point there. That's a pet peeve of mine, is people who rate games and they haven't even played them. Either way, don't do that. Then William says he also rated a 1. That Lord rated a 1 and William rated a 1. And says, meh hype. More of a grueling exercise than a game. Seriously, the creator of this teaches us a lesson in colorful garbage. I'd rather play Monopoly or hammer my fingers with it, really. I think I'll use it to punish children since spanking is taboo nowadays. I think William's going way too far there. I think the game definitely has value, especially with kids. They're going to like it. But it doesn't have that excitement that dice can give a game. Dice are a random element. So to like this game, you're going to need to like random games with random elements, right? So if you're a pure strategy gamer, you're not going to like it, right? Because it's all dice. But you should know that already coming into it. If you do like dice, this uses dice, but it doesn't give you that excitement of that pinnacle when you really make a good roll. Here it's like, oh, I got an extra point. 1 extra point. So it's not that amazing of a feeling. So I would agree with that part. Now, for the 10s, let's read some 10s. CO says, love the game. It's really quick and light on gameplay. So, yep, he's right. It's quick game. But again, if you've got 4 players, then it's too long for what it is. But with 2 players, it's great. It's quick and it's fast and it's a very light game to pick up and play. Then we've got Silver rated a 9. So rating is based on what the game is trying to be, not in comparison to the other 9 rated games. This is fun, light, solo push your luck game that gets better with more plays. So getting better with more plays, I think, has a lot to do with those character cards and learning to use those treasure tokens as well. If it wasn't for that, this game would be horrible. But those character abilities and those treasure tokens that you earn that can help you push further into the dungeon on future delves, they are what make the game fun. That's what makes the game interesting. But again, even when you use those things perfectly, then you're only gaining a couple points, right? But sometimes that's all you need to win the game. But again, I don't get the sense of excitement from it. We'll do one more. Ted gave it a 9 and says, for what this game is, I can't think of a better light game. Once you get good at it, you and a friend or two can blaze through several dungeon delves in no time. Have some interesting decisions, push some luck, hopefully get a couple really lucky rolls, and tally up your score at the end. There's no better light dungeon crawl game. So I'm trying to think, and maybe Ted's right. There might not be a dungeon crawl game this light and this fast better than Dungeon Roll. But for a dice game, a push your luck dice game, I would say Zombie Dice definitely beats Dungeon Roll in this regard. So I hope this review has helped you. I think for a light filler or for a family game for $15, it's a no-brainer purchase. If you're on the fence, play it. It doesn't take long to play, and see if it's something that you would like to add to your collection. If you're looking at Dungeon Roll because you like push your luck games and that kind of dice rolling push your luck element excites you, then this is gonna probably leave you disappointed. If you like dungeon themed games, if you are a fan of fantasy games, then there might not be a better, quick dice filler dungeon game in existence than Dungeon Roll. So it's definitely something you want to check out. If you've got a family with kids, it's definitely something you can play with your kids, and that you can teach them a lot of different skills and how to analyze risk and reward. There's a lot of valuable lessons you can teach with this game. So for families, I recommend it as well. So I hope this game has helped you decide if Dungeon Roll is something that might be for you. My name is Robert Burke, and we'll be back again soon with episode number 35. Thanks. Bye-bye.